Tres here, coming to you guys with another fucking video. And for this video, I thought I'd talk about a topic, a question I was asked about, subject that's been going around about the Lords of Chaos movie. Yes, I'd like to thank Metal Vikings 82 for asking me my thoughts on it. I was planning on watching the movie. I finally got around to it. I know there's a couple of reviews out for this movie, and just throw in there my 2 cents on what I thought the movie, my thoughts on the movie. You guys are not familiar with Lords of Chaos, which I guess if you like black metal, you probably already know the story. It's about the murder of Euronymous, you know, the Black Circle, and also the creation of the Norwegian black metal scene. Not black metal in general, just the Norwegian one. I just want to make that clear. This movie has a lot of controversy towards it, mainly because the source material is not totally there. I understand why, because not everybody that was involved is involved in the making of this movie. Not everybody has given consent, mainly Varg, obviously Varg, the one who killed Euronymous, but also the director, the Jonas from drummer from Bathory. Obviously the main complaint is he wasn't there. Obviously he was Bathory from Sweden, Mayhem, Norway. You know, he wasn't around, he wasn't there, he didn't know. You know, obviously I know about the story. I don't know. I wasn't there either, but he was a lot closer than I was, I guess. But the movie and the characters. Let's talk about the actors a little bit. Macaulay Culkin's brother's in it. He plays Euronymous. I don't know his name, first name. Val Kilmer's kid plays Varg in it. And he plays actually Varg Kilmer's kid plays Dead, and he actually plays him pretty good. Because everybody that knows how Dead was, I mean, not personally obviously, but I know he was kind of a weirdo and kind of strange and stuff, and he plays him pretty good. He's that awkward, really out there kind of character, so it was pretty good. Varg, I don't know who the rest of the cast, who they play, or their names or anything like that. The way Varg was portrayed in this, right off the bat, it's called a poser and stuff, so it's kind of a little bit weird. I don't know if that's how their relationship started, which according to Varg probably wasn't the case. And on a quick thing, I know Attila's kid actually plays Attila in when they're recording the session, the Mysterious Dome Satanas, which is part that I don't like, because I know it's more focused on the Black Circle and between Varg and Euronymous and their story, but I wish they would have shown how they got Attila and, you know, what happened to the rest of them. But again, this is just based on that story, so I just wish they would have focused it on a little bit. I know that Varg, a couple of years back, like in about 3 years ago, when they were talking about this movie, because this is based on a book, was totally against it. They asked him if they could use some Burzum music, which he flat out said, fuck you, no. Didn't get consent to that. He also had said back in the day that they had asked Mayhem and they had said no. They had asked Dark Throne and they pretty much said fuck off. But I guess there is some Mayhem music in there, so I guess eventually they did get some consent, but not from Varg, and he's to this day he's totally against it. He hasn't watched it, so he says in his vlogs. But I wish that they would, the parts that I don't like about it is that the way that Varg is portrayed. I know that this movie had a lot of input on Euronymous' family and people that were around it, but this was obviously between two people. That one of them is no longer with us, and Varg, which has no consent and no wishes to be a part of this movie. So that part I think was kind of. I wish. I'm gonna drop a link down below so you can check it out if you're not familiar with the story. It's a very crazy story. Before the Light Takes Us, or Until the Light Takes Us, it was a documentary. I don't know who released it, so it will be awesome, but I don't think it's probably two different companies or studios that made this. This one was made by Vice, Lords of Chaos. I forget what the other ones who made it, but it would be cool if they put Varg's interview in there, just to get his side of the story. Like I said, you could. I'm gonna drop a link down below so you can check it out yourself and draw your own conclusions, pretty much, because his side of the story differs a lot from what this movie shows. And I know some people might say, well, you know, it's the murderer. How you gonna take his side? But then again, this is a story about what happened, and without those two sides, I don't think you could draw your own conclusions correctly. So that's one of my biggest, I think, things I have with this movie, is that I wish that Varg, even though he's totally on right not to want to be in the movie, and that's by all means his right, and but there's certain things that Varg says on the accounts that happened that differ a lot from what happened in this movie. And again, you might be saying, you know, well, it's Varg, but the accounts from I guess the police reports kind of match up when his confession and what they found evidence for, so which totally doesn't seem to be the case in this movie. I don't know if they might not give him a fair shot, and I mean, again, he's the one that killed Euronymous, but the situation and what led up to it, and they do show conflicts between them, obviously, because that's what the movie's about, but I don't think you're getting the full story. So I'm gonna drop a link to those, obviously to Varg's Until the Light Takes Us, and his from his channel, from his vlogs, when he talks about murdering Euronymous, and also other documentaries that I seen a long time ago, like black metal murders and stuff like that, because I think it's important to get the full story, if we're getting the full story at all. Like, I saw this with my wife, and she knows of Mayhem and Burzum. She has seen me watch Varg. She probably doesn't know who he is. She's not really too much into black metal. But before going into this movie, I asked her if she wanted to see Varg's interviews, and so she could get the story more, and to see, you know, draw her own conclusions, if there was any conclusions to draw from this. But yeah, she liked the movie overall. The beginning act, the first act for me, and also my wife, was pure garbage. It was cringy as fuck. Is cringy and cheesy as all hell. I know when, you know, you're in a band. I've been in a bunch of bands myself. We goof around. But the way it was, the first act was pure garbage. What was a little off-putting to me about this movie when I first heard about it is the trailers. That the trailers are trash, and they make this movie, the way I first perceived it, they're trying to make this thing into a comedy. The first act kind of goes that way as well. I'm not saying that bands don't goof around and stuff, but Jesus, that first act was bad. when they first play, I kind of like that scene, and also when Varg, it takes at least 20 to 30 minutes of pure trash until until Dead, you know, kills himself. Obviously, spoilers if you haven't seen the movie or don't know the story, but sorry. When he kills himself, and that's very graphic, and wow, that was wow. Then it starts picking up, and it gets a little bit more interesting. Again, depends on how you see it. My favorite part by far was the church burnings, because church burnings. But the way the way it was filmed, the cinematography is beautiful. It's I loved it. The only part I didn't like is when he was having a dream with Dead. That was kind of didn't need it to be there. Kind of like what Metal Viking 82 said about the sex scenes too. It wasn't necessary as much as we saw. You need to see all that. But when the churches were burning, and maybe because they never focused in on that in movies, but I have never seen timber so beautifully burned like that, and I love watching that. That was pretty cool. And I know it was supposed to be a serious movie. It had some little bit of comedy here and there, but not as cheesy as the first act was. The other parts that had a little bit of comedy was when Euronymous gets called by Kerrang! Magazine, and they're asking him about the church burnings. That's when Varg got arrested, and there was a big scene happening, big push to sign black metal bands from Norway, especially. That pretty much kind of exploded, at least to me. Anyway, but when they contact him asking him about what are you gonna do, he's in jail, how's the new Mayhem gonna be done, and then he says we're already working on one, we already recorded it, and he says there's a Dom Mysterious, Dom Mysterious Satanas, and then he's on the phone and they ask him pretty much how's it spelled, and he starts spelling it. I thought that was pretty funny. But there's certain inaccuracies in the movie, that's as far as you heard from Varg himself, and like when Euronymous, the part when he dies and he shows up to kill, Varg shows up to kill him, the chocolate milk, what the fuck. Also, Varg says himself that he wasn't vegan. I mean, he only became vegetarian for 2 years while he was in jail because he had food poisoning because the food was bad, so he had to try to become a vegetarian. So he's, you know, again, if you watch his a little bit of his videos, you'll get to know him a little bit more. I know he's a little fucking out there too, but that's Varg. And again, these murders and church burnings that happened back in the day it's a crazy story. They were all young kids when all this happened, and obviously that whole thing with the Black Circle going on. But overall, the movie, I kind of enjoy it. It's kind of like that Batman thing. It's like, is this the movie that we deserve and that we need? It was kind of forced upon us. Obviously, no one's holding a gun to my head to go watch the fucking movie, but I did because I was fucking curious. And plus, the Mysterious Dom Satanas was the first album that I heard from Mayhem. Before posers go, you poser? Nah. I was into death metal back in the day, pretty much. Growing up, I grew up in El Salvador. I left here to go to El Salvador and then came back over here later. But anyway, you know, the glory days of tape trading, but it was obviously prevalent. But back in the day, you also money was hard to come by as a young kid, and sometimes when you will go to record stores, when you will have enough money, you will go over there, and you got to be very careful what you bought. I know blind buys were a thing that I still do now, but I bought the Mysterious Dome Satanas on tape. It was hard to see, you know, the cathedral and everything, what it was. And when I put it on, I instantly hated it because back in the day, I was into bands like Sinister, Hypocrisy, bands like that, Seance, good stuff. Yeah. And when I got it, I was like, what the hell? I bought a death metal demo tape because I didn't know what black metal was. And so I forced myself to listen to it a couple more times, and I started liking it. And through fanzines and word of mouth, I understood what black metal was, and with tape trading, I got their earlier stuff. Well, you know, their EPs, Death Crusher, and all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, as for liking the movie and the story, it's cool, but I don't. Was it necessarily? Was it portrayed in the best light, or? You know, there's only two people that could have done this, and I mean, obviously Euronymous is dead, but Varg didn't want to have any, and he has all the right not to want to do anything, have any input on this movie. So again, I will drop a link down to his part of the story, because that's very important too. Whether you believe him or not, it's fine, but at least you'll get some sort of conclusion, or make your own conclusions, and at least to have a side in it, not just word of mouth and how it was shown in this movie. But overall, it was after the first act was over, the first 20 minutes, then it got semi better, but I will watch it again just for the some of the parts in there were okay, like that party scene when they're all chilling out. It reminds me a lot when I'm growing up, hanging out with my friends and shit, which I still do party like that, like a fucking young kid, and even though I'm old as fuck. But anyway, those were my 2 cents for what I think about the Lord of Chaos. Again, links to Varg's side of the story will be dropped down below, as well as the links to Until the Light Takes Us, and those other black metal murders and all that other stuff will be dropped down below too. And I don't think I'm going to put a trailer, because the trailer doesn't do this movie justice, and it would just make it worse. Not saying the movie's bad, I've just watched it and wasn't terrible. I know it sounds like I'm forcing myself to say good things about the movie, but it was enjoyable. When Dead dies, even though that sounds messed up, but the movie got picked up a little bit. As far as director's cut goes, I wish they would include more stuff in it, and some of the trailers, like I said at the beginning, threw me off on it because it seemed kind of goofy. So I'm glad they left some of those parts out, but it needed more of a authentic, less cringy origin story, and maybe Varg's involvement and Burzum would have been cool as well, because, you know, again, 2 sides. So anyway, yeah, that was my 2 cents, and like I always end these things. And by the way, Viking Metal 82, cheers, dude, and thanks for asking me this, and you know, I enjoyed your video as well, and your thoughts on this movie. So, yes, sir. So, anyway, take care of yourself, take care of each other, stay hydrated, and support metal on those fucking forums.